Hello, church. Good to be with you again. We're in Proverbs 11 today. And you may recall last week we emphasized the power of words and how destructive they can be, and then also how healing and loving they can be. And so we're going to pick up a similar concept this week, kind of piggyback it off what we taught and learned last week. So in Proverbs chapter 11, if you go to verse 13, it said, "A gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. For lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors." All right, here's what I would say. Right away, we see the word gossip, and all of us should immediately have been convicted, because I think we're all guilty of that. Nobody that I'm aware of is free of that. It's an interesting thing about my job is that there's a cone of silence that happens in my office. Things told in my office stay in my office, confidential things. I think it's part of my responsibility as a pastor to maintain confidences, and I'm not crazy about the word secrets, but I think there are some things that just stay in my office. But here's a funny thing about people is they assume that if I know something, that Dee Dee knows something, right? There's an assumption made that I go home and I tell Dee Dee everything, which is absolutely not true. Probably 95% of what happens in my office never goes home. And only that 5%, which I know is not going to be destructive or hurtful. And part of the reason I say this to you is that there's a broad assumption that I guess if my pastor does it, it's okay if I do it. I'm just going to tell you right now that I don't think that's the case. I think it's a case of we should all be significantly concerned about gossip and what that leads to and how hurtful that is. Mostly when I see our teenagers live through that. So one of the things I know to be true about my job is that people say things about me and say things that I do that never really happen. So I'm a victim, if you will, of gossip that happens in our community. And Titus and I laugh about the things that are attributed to both of us that just quite frankly aren't true. Things that people say I said, things that we did that just never happened. And so this is the nature of gossip. And so it'd be great if we could just get to what's at the bottom of that. And generally, I think insecurity, spiritual immaturity is at the bottom of that. So the warning here is for us not to find ourselves in a place where we gossip, right? Where we betray a confidence, right? So here's what I would tell you about my job is that I do walk with a treasure trove of confidential brokenness and pain. That if that were to spill out of my office would be so incredibly hurtful to other people. And so if you begin to see yourself in the same capacity as the priesthood of all believers, and in that capacity that you are to hold people's confidences as a treasure trove of brokenness and pain, and not release those without having been given permission to release those, without being able to say, hey, can I share that with somebody else? So here's an example. Today I had a phone call from somebody who lives out of state, who I love dearly. He called, he was worried about somebody in our church and was expressing those concerns. And I said to him, can I share your concerns with that individual? And of course his answer was yes. But do you see how I handled that? I wanted to make sure that what he was sharing with me was fine to be shared with other people. So I think we know this to be true, that gossip is a destructive wildfire. And here's what I think is people who have to tear everybody down and tear something else down comes from a place where they maybe don't feel good about themselves, that they've not come to grips with their worthiness before a holy God. And so the way for them to equal the perceptive playing field is to talk about other people, right? So again, I think I live in this world more than most people and have learned to just laugh at the things that are said about me. But at the same time, I'm not going to lie and tell you that not some of them aren't hurtful. It happens. But the key for us is to not be the person who starts the fire, right? We're going to be victimized, all of us, by gossip. We should never be the person for which throws the first match onto a field that causes it to burn, right? And this is what gossip does. So again, I think last week's teaching, if you have to go back and listen to Proverbs 10, that'll be helpful maybe for Proverbs 11, but these things go hand in hand, church. So find yourself being a trustworthy friend, somebody who keeps a confidence. Don't be part of what we now famously call on the island vine and gossip chain. Don't be a part of that. So, church, I hope this is helpful to you. This is a word of God for the people of God. God has a word for us today, one we might not like, but one we need. So again, I love you. Can't wait to be with you again next week.